Some people are blessed with a strong immune system. Others aren't as lucky. Their defenses have been worn down by disease or injury, so they're susceptible to all kinds of infections that a healthy person would easily fight off. When that happens to someone you love, it's terrible to watch. The body politic works in much the same way. Our democracy has built-in defenses and keeps us strong and healthy, including the checks and balances written into our Constitution. Our founding fathers believed that one of the most important defenses would be an informed citizenry that could make sound judgments based on facts and reason. Losing that is like losing an immune system, leaving a democracy vulnerable to all manner of attack, and a democracy, like a body, cannot stay strong through repeated injuries. In 2016, our democracy was assaulted by a foreign adversary. I wonder who. Determined to mislead our people, inflame our divisions, and throw an election to its preferred candidate. The attack succeeded because our immune system had been slowly eroded over years. Many Americans had lost faith in the institutions that previous generations relied on for objective information, including governments, academia, and the press, leaving them vulnerable to a sophisticated misinformation campaign. There are many reasons why this happened, but one is that a small group of white-wing billionaires, people like the Mercer family and Charles and David Koch, recognized long ago that, as Stephen Colbert once joked, reality is a well-known liberal bias. More generally, the right spent a lot of time and money building an alternative reality. Think of a petri dish where science is denied, lies masquerade as truth, and paranoia flourishes. Their efforts were amplified in 2016 by a presidential candidate who trafficked in dark conspiracy theories, drawn from the pages of supermarket tabloids and the far reaches of the internet. A candidate who deflected any criticism by attacking others with made-up facts and an uncanny gift for humiliating zingers. He helped to further blur news and entertainment, reality TV, and reality. As a result, by the time Vladimir Putin, there he is, came along, our democracy was already far sicker than we realized. Now that Russia have infected us and seen how weak our defenses are, they'll keep at it. Maybe other foreign powers will join them. They'll all continue targeting our friends and allies. Their ultimate goal is to undermine, perhaps even destroy, Western democracy itself. As the former Director of National Intelligence James Clapper told Congress, if there has ever been a clarion call for vigilance and action against a threat to the very foundation of our democratic political system, this episode is it. This should concern all Americans, Republicans, Democrats, Independents, everyone. We need to get to the bottom of it. The 2016 election may be over, but we have new elections coming up soon. I'm going to lay out what is known in as much detail as I can, so we could try to understand what happened and what we can do to prevent it from happening again. There's a lot we still don't know. Investigations are ongoing, and story changes daily with breaking news. Trump, his allies, and others have vigorously denied accusations of wrongdoing. You can look at the facts and decide for yourself. But what should be beyond doubt is that foreign interference in our election is wrong, period. And the threat we face from without and within is bigger than one campaign, one party, or one election. The one way to heal our democracy and protect it for the future is to understand the threat and defeat it. V for Vandetta. Vladimir. Oh, Vlad. President Obama once compared Vladimir Putin to a bored kid at the back of the classroom. He's got that kind of slouch, Obama said. When I sat with Putin in meetings, he looked more like one of those guys on the subway who imperiously spread their legs wide, encroaching on everyone else's space, as if to say, I take what I want. And I have so little respect for you that I'm going to act as if I'm lounging at home in my bathrobe. They call it manspreading. That was Putin. I've dealt with a lot of male leaders in my life, but Putin is in a class by himself. Former KGB spy with a taste for over-the-top macho theatrics and Baroque violence. A public inquiry in the United Kingdom concluded that he probably approved the killing of one of his enemies in London by poisoning his tea with polonium-210, a rare radioactive isotope. Putin has emerged in the popular imagination as an arch-villain straight out of a James Bond movie. Yes, he's also perennially misunderstood and underestimated. George W. Bush famously said that after looking Putin in the eye, he found him very straightforward and trustworthy, and was able to get a sense of his soul. My somewhat tongue-in-cheek response was, he was a KGB agent. By definition, he doesn't have a soul. I don't think Vladimir appreciated that one. Our relationship has been sour for a long time. Putin doesn't respect women and despises anyone who stands up to him. So I'm a double problem. After I criticized one of his policies, he told the press, it's better not to argue with women. But went on to call me weak. Maybe weakness is not the worst quality for a woman, he joked. Hilarious. Putin still swallows over what he views is a humiliation of the 1990s when Russia lost its old Soviet dominion. And the Clinton administration presided over NATO's expansion, and things got a lot worse between us during my time as Secretary of State. When President Obama and I came into office in 2009, Putin and his Prime Minister, Dmitry Medvedev, had swapped jobs as a way of thwarting constitutionally required term limits. Surprisingly, Medvedev showed some independence, a willingness to pursue better relations with the United States. We knew Putin was still the real power in Russia and decided to see if we could find some area of shared interests where progress might be possible. That was the origin of the much maligned reset. It led to several concrete successes, including a new nuclear arms control treaty, new sanctions on Iran and North Korea, a much-needed supply route to equip our troops in Afghanistan, increased trade and investment, and expanded counterterrorism cooperation in the spring of 2011. President Medvedev agreed to abstain on the UN Security Council resolution authorizing the use of force to protect civilians in Libya from the dictator Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, a decision that angered Putin. President Obama and I agreed that seeking pragmatic cooperation with Russia on certain issues was not inconsistent with also standing up for our values and showing support for the democratic aspirations of the Russian people. I felt the responsibility to speak out against the Kremlin's repression of human rights in Russia, especially the intimidation and murder of journalists and political opponents. In October 2009, I was in Moscow and did an interview with one of the last remaining independent radio stations in the country. I expressed support for human rights and civil society. And I said that I thought a lot of Russians wanted the thugs who attacked journalists brought to justice. I knew Putin wouldn't be happy with me saying these things on his own turf. But I felt that if the United States accepted a gag order on these issues, that decision would reverberate. not just in Russia, but also around the world. The KGB taught Putin to be suspicious of everyone. Russia's troubles in the 1990s and the color revolution of the 2000s, the string of popular revolts that toppled authoritarian regimes in several former Soviet bloc countries, took him from suspicious to paranoid. He came to view popular dissent as an existential threat. When he heard me and other Western leaders voice support of civil society in Russia, he saw it as a plot to undermine him. For Putin, a pivotal moment came in 2011. In September, he announced he would run for president again. In December, there was widespread reports of fraud in parliamentary elections, which sparked domestic protests and international condemnation. At a conference in Lithuania focused on promoting democracy and human rights in Europe, I expressed America's concerns. The Russian people, like everywhere, deserve the right to have their voices heard and their votes counted, I said. And that means they deserve fair, free, transparent elections and leaders who are accountable to them. Tens of thousands of Russians took to the streets amid chants of "Putin is a thief," an unprecedented popular challenge to his iron grip on the country. Putin, more paranoid than ever, thought it was a conspiracy orchestrated from Washington. He blamed me in particular, saying I gave them a signal. Putin quashed the protests and once again became president. He was now running scared and seething with anger. In the fall of 2011, Putin had published an essay promising to regain Russia's regional and global influence. I read it as a plan to re-Sovietize the lost empire and said so publicly. Once back in office, Putin moved to put his vision into action. He consolidated power and cracked down on any remaining domestic dissent. He also took a more combative tone toward the West and nursed his personal grudge against me. By the way, that's not just how I saw it. Grudge is also the word the US government used in its official assessment. In a series of memos, I warned President Obama that things were changing in Russia and America would have to take a harder line with Putin. Our relationship was likely to get worse before it got better. I told the president that we needed to make it clear to Putin that aggressive actions would have consequences.